Fourth, we will call to order the Administration and Projects Committee meeting. And first item on our agenda this morning is public comment. This is a time when anyone in the audience may comment on any item not listed on today's agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to make comment on any item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will close the public comment period. Next item is the approval of the minutes. Any changes, corrections, or a motion?
Move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Excuse me. A motion by Butt, second by Taylor. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item is the consent calendar. All items to be approved routinely unless there is something someone wants to pull.
I move to approve with two comments. One, to thank Hisham. Are you the one that did the 85-page report on project status? And that is really that's a lot of work to do that. And you know the best part of that is not in the report. It's your summary page, and I think it's on page 3. Is the Callicut Tunnel project actually closed out?
No.
That's what it says.
Almost.
Was that only because of the 5-year warranty? Is that's all that's closed out on plants?
The landscape has ended, but we are closing it out.
Okay. Yeah. But well done. Really nice report. That's a lot of work to do that.
Thank you. It's not just me. It's a lot of the project managers.
Yeah, but it's still not closed out.
We haven't settled finally with Caltrans yet on the bills. Yes.
The day you do that, let me know. I'm going to bring some champagne.
Sounds good.
We're telling them you're going to send Newell to Bob to go have a conversation.
There
Yes.
you go. All right. Any other comments or anything on the consent calendar? I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Arnrich, second by Taylor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. On to the regular agenda items, our legislative update. You're on your own today, Lindsay.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Mark Watts is not able to be here this morning, so I'll be pinch hitting for him on the state side of the House. But one noteworthy item on the federal side of the House, and I'm going to let Tim and Randy jump in here to share some news about the Advanced Transportation and Congestion Management Technologies Deployment Grant. You guys want to share the great news? We won $8 million from the federal government.
We were one of 51 applicants nationwide. You have to be a public agency to make the application, and you have to match dollar for dollar. And we put together a proposal to bring mobility as a service or mobility on demand platform to the Bay Area. And they selected, it was a $60 million program this year, and they took the federal government took $7 million off the top for support, and then left $53 million. And I think we were the third highest allocation of $8 million. It was University of Alabama, 8 state departments of transportation, and then I joke, I say we're in a pea shooter sized organization, but we actually have some pretty good partners. But we're a local agency to win that is pretty cool. So we're very proud of that. Now the devil's in the details. We got to deliver this mobility as a service platform with all of the partners, and it's a 3-year program. I think the total budget is a little over $17 million, about $17.5 million. So we're very excited.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Tom?
Quick question. So where does the match come from?
So the match comes from a various partners. So it comes from CCTA. It comes from AAA's $3 million. There's another $1 million from the Air Board, and then Momentum Station, and then some in kind along the corridor. So you have Danville and San Ramon and others. So those in kind.
That's pretty awesome. That's
Yes.
pretty awesome.
But as I said, now we have to deliver on that commitment, because if we don't, then the future allocations when we make requests is going to be more difficult. So we have to deliver. It's the only mobility on demand technology project that was selected. So the federal government is intent on how do we move people into other modes of transportation. And we think technology is the way to do it. So what we're looking for is a MOS platform or a MOD platform on a smart device that says, okay, you're going to go from point A to point B. Here are your options. There's a uniform payment system. We can actually take different payment systems in the future and then bring them through a platform so it's all uniform. So you as the user can take your smart device and walk through any platform that you want. So that excuse is out of the way. You get better information. You get better information about scheduling. And in Europe, in Scandinavia, actually in Denmark, they've actually gone to the point where they're trying to now put the airline. So if you want to go from point A literally to Shanghai, China, it will tell you how to go to SFO, what schedules are for different schedules for airplanes, and then fly over.
I guess the question I would ask, does this open, little pea shooter outfit, but does this open doors? Obviously, if we perform, does this have a spider web?
Absolutely. I think that the federal government generally doesn't allocate to entities that they aren't familiar with or don't have confidence in being able to deliver whatever it is that they're proposing. And so I think that, at least from my perspective, and I think Lindsay would agree, we spend a lot of time in Washington. And we do that because we want to develop a relationship, we want to talk about what we're doing, but the real proof is whether or not you deliver. And we have delivered when we get allocations from the federal government, when we get allocations from state government, when we get allocations from the region, we deliver on what we say. And I think that's part of our attractiveness of giving grants to. Plus, I think we think outside the box. In this case, nobody has this, for sure, in the Bay Area. And we've been struggling with how do you find, because we have so many transit agencies. And one of the issues has been, okay, if I take this bus and they want this kind of payment, or I take this and they want this kind of payment, or they don't connect. So if we can protect the connections between the modes, we have a same payment system, we have a very easy to use device, and we don't reinvent the wheel, because there are MOS platforms out there, but we need to modify some of those in order to deal with the Bay Area issues. I think we're going to have a very successful project.
So the object where I was really pointing to, the object there is that as we have CCTA in the forefront and going to Washington, D.C. with our lobbyists, we have a saying in Brentwood, if you're not at the table, you can't eat. So obviously we're at the table, and the more we're out there, so just keep going to D.C. or just keep knowing, at least they know who we are.
Not at the table, your dinner.
Yes, sir.
Well, that could be, okay, now we got more sayings.
Congratulations to us. That's really awesome. With the good news out of the way, now what you got?
He didn't want me to steal his thunder on that one, so hopefully that was a good intro for you. So now we'll turn to state matters, which don't seem as exciting as winning an $8 million grant, but still important for us to cover. So in your packet, you should have your report, and it shows the schedule. The two budget subcommittees responsible for the state transportation budget have released their schedules. They're going to begin hearings next week on budget items, and then the legislature will be on recess from April 11th through April 22nd. There are two bills in your packet before you for consideration and a position this morning. One is one bill that we'd like you to take a position on, another we're watching. So the one we'd like you to take a position on is Senate Bill 152 by Senator Bell. It's sponsored by the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and it's related to how funding for active transportation programs are distributed in the Bay Area and how we compete for them. So we have done an analysis. Thank you, Hisham, our programming guru, and we would like you to support this bill in part because we think it puts us in a better position to compete for these fundings, for this funding in the future. The Bay Area got very little active transportation funding the last cycle, and I think in Contra Costa we actually got none. So anything is better than nothing, and we think this bill and the way they're proposing to restructure the program will put us in a better position to get our hands on those dollars. So that's a bill that we'd like you to support. We've put another bill on here that we're just going to continue to watch, AB 626, and it's a bill released by ACEC, and it has to do with conflict of interest and how people do it. So the self-help counties are opposing this bill right now on the belief that it limits the flexibility of agencies. Each agency has their own kind of procurement and conflict of interest code, and this would be making it more prescriptive state law versus the existing law, and letting agencies craft their own conflict of interest. So we're just watching this right now. There could potentially be some additional amendments, but we just wanted to bring it to your attention. We don't think this is going to have any effect on CMGC, but we're also watching this bill as opposed to taking a position, because we don't want to get into any sort of conflict as we carry our bill about CMGC forward. There was also a bill that we were monitoring on our list last month, SB 127, which is Senator Wiener's bill on active transportation and creating a new active transportation department. And that bill has been referred to the Assembly Transportation Committee. I didn't have a chance to see what date that was actually set for a hearing, so that's something we'll continue to monitor. And then Randy shared with me this morning another bill that we've been talking about internally, Senate Bill 336 by Dodd, which would require an attendant in an automated vehicle. That hearing has been postponed by the committee. It doesn't have any hearing date set now, so we will continue to watch that as well. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lindsay. I heard from staff at or I guess it was from someone else in the northern part of the Bay Area, that the Dodd bill had been pulled. So let's hope that's the case. What is the pleasure of the committee on SB 152, the Bell bill on the ATP funding? No.
I was just going to make a quick comment, and Lindsay asked. On the last bill, Teamsters is the one who put that bill up to have. I have to tell you, I'm the vice chair of the State Policy Committee on Transportation, Communication, Public Works. The committee voted 2-1 to require there to be. I was just flabbergasted. I just couldn't believe. I said, "This is innovation." You know that this is. They do this every time. I said, BART has a driver, but actually it's not a driver. The trains run by themselves.
Right.
That's the same thing. And I couldn't believe. Now that's only a recommendation to the board of the League of California Cities before they take a statewide position. But yeah, wow. We should be weighing in on that. That's just. And they tried to use that. Their scare tactic was, buses, school buses. Well, school buses aren't governed by this anymore.
No.
It has nothing to do with that. And school buses come under CHP, a whole bunch that would never, ever change. And it'd be like you're not going to see ambulances without human beings on them. I mean,
Right.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
But that's all they could talk about. And I was
It's
just
an
really
education
shocked
factor. Yeah.
that 2/3 of the room thought that was essential.
Could you tell geographically where it was?
Southern California, which was real surprising.
And the valley, I'll bet.
Yeah, just sort of all over Southern California was the majority. Northern California wasn't, because we had Tim from Concord
Yeah.
and stuff. But very disappointing. But I think the positions you have on these, I'd recommend we do both of those at this point. I mean, watch, support one.
Okay. Was that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion by Arnrich, a second by Butt, to support SB 152, continue to watch on AB 626, and we will monitor the other bills going forward. So all in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And let me get back to my agenda. We are now on to item 11, which is the I-80 Central Avenue Operational Improvements Phase 1. And Ivan, you're up.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. Ivan Ramirez, Director of Construction for the Authority. And this is an action item where we're going to ask you to approve Resolution 1914P, which will authorize acceptance of the construction contract under Agreement 463 with Gelati Brothers, and as being complete and satisfactory. And this basically concludes the work in the field once you take this action. As part of this action item, we have arranged for a presentation, and we are trying something new today. We're going to be showing you a lot of aerial videos. I think that will provide a better perspective of what the project looks like, especially being so small. So looking forward to any feedback you might have regarding that. So
Was this a drone?
yes, yeah. So a little bit of background on the project. Bid opened on 6/29/17. We awarded it, or the board awarded this contract on 7/19/17. Contractor is Gelati Brothers, not to be confused with Gelati Construction, which people confuse them a lot. The original allotment was $3.9 million, and the final allotment was $4.3 million. And I will get a little bit into some of the things that we did during the project that I'll use this increasing allotment. So a little bit of more background on the project. This is a view of Central Avenue. In the foreground is Interstate 680, and it's kind of confusing because westbound is going left on the slide. On the background is 580, which eastbound is going on the opposite direction. And to complicate matters worse is that neither one are going east-west. They're actually going north-south at this particular geographical location. But the idea of the project is that there's severe congestion on Central Avenue prior to the intersection at Interstate 80. And that has to do with the closeness of the intersections there and the amount of traffic that happens at peak periods. Because all the way at the end of Central Avenue, as you see on this slide, is Costco and other businesses that people frequent around the weekends. So between the hours of 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. on weekends, a new sign was installed at this location, shown on the slide, where it prevents the turn onto westbound 80 and pushes traffic onto 580, again in the background. It closes this on-ramp, and what that does, or is supposed to do per the design, is to prevent that left turn and then pushing people over there, then over to 580. What that does is prevent the backup on Central Avenue. And then traffic goes in this direction, as shown on the arrows, goes on to eastbound 580, and westbound and 80 and eastbound by 580 meet just down the road. So there's really no impact to the public other than having to go a bigger loop. But they gain that by not being stuck on traffic on Central Avenue. So we took a video to demonstrate how this operates during the week. At any time, this is the sign that people see as they approach the intersection. And at 11 a.m., the sign turns over and prevents this turn and pushes us over to 580. And this is a little overview because I also want to show you a couple of things on this end of the project, which is during the design phase, the scope was increased to put ADA ramps throughout the project because that was not part of the original scope. The original scope was just put the sign and push traffic over. And also there is some paving here at the in the intersection that was done as part of the project that, again, I will talk about a little later. So one of the concerns that have come up since this change was made is that people continuously violate the no left turn onto the on-ramp. And this is it's considered an enforcement issue because the sign prohibits that turn. But as you can see here, these two vehicles that we captured at the moment the sign was turned on continue to make that left turn. So we, as part of our project, we had to ask the city of Richmond to keep track of any complaints or enforcement actions that they have taken and put it in a report for Caltrans. And from the city's perspective, there was no enforcement done, but also they received no complaints. I was at a meeting last week with Caltrans, and they indicated to us that there have been some complaints of people that are obeying the sign complaining about the people that are not obeying the sign. So by people not obeying the sign, then that detracts a little bit from the purpose of the project, where there's some backup that accumulates on Central Avenue, and that's as of right now, we have turned over a project study that we did over to Caltrans, and it's up to them what actions they're going to take over to prevent this or whatever other actions they might want to take. So basically, CCTA has done with their commitments. So part of the scope, again, this is an overview going on to Central from the opposite direction. Pay attention to the roadway there, because we did paving, again, that was out of scope, that was added during the construction of the project. You can also see improvements there for the biking community. This was part of the original scope. I'll show you some improvements that we did for the biking community as part of also out of scope. You can also see the ADA ramps at all the locations of this intersection, and by putting the ADA ramps that allow somebody that is using a wheelchair or is otherwise physically disabled to go across the entire project with ADA ramps. Well, in the past, they didn't have that opportunity, and some of them were outdated, frankly, so we had to make some improvements to the existing ADA ramps, and that was added, again, as part of the design. These are the improvements over at 580, and again, we have ADA ramps, biking improvements. We also added motion detection to make the signals better, more effective. So if there's a vehicle approaching and there's nobody waiting at the intersection, then they get the opportunity to travel and move forward. So that was part of the original scope. These are the improvements at Central Avenue and Ryden. Over here, we install a new signal, because this is where traffic is coming to make that left turn onto 580. And there was a gap there on the trail, on the Bay Area Trail, and staff meeting with the biking community, sat down and see if we can come up with a solution to make it safer for people using the trail to move through the intersection, and that's what that is shown here, where, and as we fly through, you'll see that vehicle parked there in the middle of the trail is a Caltrans vehicle, and the people are working on the intersection there on the signal. I think they're trying to make the timing more effective. And you can see we have ADA ramps. You can see that there's a safe harbor for people crossing the intersection, because the bikers and pedestrians have to share that space, so we created more space for them to sit there while the signal changes. There is a green stripe and also a white stripe there at the intersections, and that's because the bikers and the pedestrians are using different space as they're crossing that intersection. They're not sharing a lot of intersections. They share that path. We were also asked by the biking community to put a curb at this location to protect them better from traffic. There's a lot of big rigs at this location. It's semi-industrial, so a lot of big rigs come through there. And in fact, you can tell at the prior to the intersection that some of the delineators have been knocked down already, even though they've only been there a few months. The city of Richmond agreed to maintain these as part of the approval for Caltrans. So here's our fly-through again. We have a new intersection there. Then all those traffic signals are new. And this is the best part, I think. So, like Randy promotes a lot in partnering in our projects, and it's valuable partnering because it diminishes conflicts, but it also creates opportunities. That's what I like the best about partnering. You can go down, sit down, and have a discussion about what can be done better. In this particular instance, somebody mentioned that the paving at Central was really bad. In fact, it was dismal, to be honest. And Randy, at the partnering session, talked to the owner of the contract to say, why don't we work on something here? So, we got our marching orders. Randy called the city manager at the city of Richmond to see if they could come up with some funding. The way it ended up working was that the city had only $700,000 to contribute to the effort. Contractor submitted an estimate. We worked it down after several negotiations back and forth to $872. So there was about $172,000 that the city couldn't use to complete the project. So I called the city of El Cerrito because they are the other sponsors, and I said, hey, do you mind if we use part of the contingency to complete this work? And what they told me was, look, a lot of our residents use that road to come in and out, so we are okay with using that contingency. So with that, we were able to go and complete the work. And I'm going to show you here, those are the limits of the paving, by the way. This is a before and after photo of the paving. What I can tell you is that our resident engineer told me that people actually stopped and thanked them for the work that we did here. Now, I can tell you, I've been in the field many years, and I hear, whatever project I'm doing, no matter the improvement, I hear otherwise. So this is saying a lot about the fact that we were able to get this work for the community during the work, in addition to the ADA improvements that we did at Central and Ryden. So the project, it's a success. We'll have to work the details of how we're going to manage those left turns and how we're going to make sure that the improvements are going to work in the future. Another note, because this was so successful, the mayor of the city of Brentwood asked us to do a similar situation on the city of Brentwood, where as part of the Balfour project, we were going to do some paving that they had scheduled for 2 years down the road. Hisham worked out some kind of package to make sure that the funding was available and some transfer or something with the city of Pittsburgh. So we were able to accomplish that. I was told that the paving is done over there. We're still finalizing the concrete, but the paving is done. So I hope that is correct. And with that, I am open to any questions.
Questions and comments, Mr. Taylor?
Yes. First of all, on that project, saves people a lot of time. The congestion there was really great. I mean, obviously the photography is, God, it's like watching a movie. But the idea is that was good for that whole surrounding area when you said El Cerrito. So how many cities were involved in, and would you say is that the way it looks a lot now? The traffic's moving, the congestion is.
So the traffic study identified certain traffic movements that are a lot better, but the continuation of traffic or the fact that they're not continuing to 580 and they're insisting on making that left turn prevents for the improvements that can be made to completely come through. So let me give you an example. When we first opened the intersection, we had CHP enforcing no left turn. And when we did that, there was no backup. There was absolutely no backup on Central because everybody was going through. Because we don't have CHP there the whole time now, it's not, so the answer to your question is not as working as well as it could should people decide to follow the left turn.
But isn't Central Avenue, isn't that a city? Isn't that a city issue? At Central Avenue, where is that?
Central Avenue is in the city of Richmond and abutting city of El Cerrito.
So,
Right on the El Cerrito border.
So can't the officers, when you say why would Highway Patrol?
On-ramp.
Because it's the on-ramp.
It's the on-ramp.
Yeah, you saw the pullout there
Oh, okay.
for
All right.
for the officers to sit in that pullout, and as long as they're there to enforce it, somebody's not going to jump the
Oh,
left
I
turn.
got it. But yeah, but if they're not there, then they take advantage. Like
Police can enforce that as well.
the
Yeah.
city police can? All right. And as far as the Balfour and the Pittsburgh exchange, I just want everybody to here to know, we are going to give Pittsburgh back the money. I mean, this wasn't just thought it's coming out of our bank. But I think that partnering with other communities that are close, because what is happening, that really benefits the regional area. It's not just Brentwood or as you said, Hercules or El Cerrito, whichever one it was. That's a good thing. And because as we've stated before many times, as I sat up here, people move. They go through Richmond or they go through these cities from all over the areas. So I would encourage if we really need to do a lot of that because it really works. And there doesn't seem to be that much opposition. If we can help one city, we need to do the same. Reciprocation is good. So anyway, wow, I'm impressed by the drone.
Newell?
Same here. I think what actually the videos illustrate is what we all think about traffic, but we generally see it on a two-dimensional drawing. You actually see it flowing and operating. And the fact is you caught those people making the left hand is great. And if you were there with a lot of them doing it, you'd see the backup. This is really well done. But I think it's also, particularly on the I-80 corridor, all those on and off ramps were freeway-driven designs. They didn't want people in there. That was really the last thought. I think this is the new standard: is making them pedestrian-friendly, making the traffic flow better. To me, I've only been through it once. It's a really nice improvement. And as a driver, you feel more confident. There is those separations. It's very noticeable. Really well done. But I think the videos are good, even as we're designing projects. Go out and to demonstrate what it looks like now, and really document that. And then what we can do is we're looking at this also for the design teams. I think that ought to be the norm, because we always think we look at these little computer models. Nothing better than looking at one of these overhead aerials. It really is a great tool. I'd move the item as presented to make final payment.
I second it.
Motion by Unrich, second by Taylor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously, and thank you to the City of Richmond for being progressive in the way that we manage projects and collaborate with the state partners. This is really the example we need to follow.
Through the chair.
Yes.
Oh, one question. Are you going to show this to the board? Because
I think it would be good.
So do
and,
I. So.
And I think Newell's point is a really good one. As we get ready to design solutions for intersections like this, doing the before video to study during those peak congestion times probably helps us see more than we think is going on, and where we can see the conflicts between the bikes and the pedestrians and the cars and trucks and all of that. It will help us to identify the human movements that we maybe need to retrain.
Well done.
But this is really cool. So thank you very much. I love the way we're being innovative. All righty, the next item. Yeah, we voted. Yep, we did. Thank you. We're on to item 12, the adoption of publicly available pay schedules, and I guess we weren't as transparent as we hoped to be, eh? Yes. So Terry Ann, this is yours.
Good morning, Chair Pierce and Commissioners. I will provide one presentation for both items and then seek a separate motion for each item. In 2015, the Board adopted Resolution 1506A, which allowed us to authorize the current fiscal year 2015-16 pay schedule, as well as the two following fiscal years, 16-17 and 17-18, with a consumer price index cap of 3.5%. With that approval, the Executive Director amended fiscal year 2016-17 salary schedule by 3.2% and fiscal year 17-18 by 3.5%. Upon review of the CalPERS requirements to be a publicly available pay schedule and to be pensionable compensation, it was determined that all 8 of the requirements had to be met. 2 of those requirements were that you could not reference another document in lieu of disclosing the pay rate, and another was that it had to be duly approved and adopted by the governing body in accordance with the applicable public meeting laws. So with that, we are bringing the fiscal year 2016-17 and 17-18 pay schedules before you administratively to make them publicly available pay schedules. The second item is to approve the upcoming fiscal year 2019-20. We did adopt 2018-19 last year as part of the compensation study under Resolution 1822A. So this year, the consumer price index change in December was 4.5%. So we're recommending that we amend the pay schedule for the upcoming fiscal year by the 3.5% cap authorized by the board in 2018. Upon approval, the cost of living adjustment will be provided to all employees this year, effective July 1st, 2019, as per the Office Procedure 7.1 that was adopted by the board in March. There is a handout that you were provided. It's going to change the senior accountant position to an exempt position for the upcoming fiscal year. It does meet the standards of the Fair Labor Standards Act to qualify for an exempt position. Therefore, the staff requests adoption of Resolution 1910A to publicly adopt the pay schedules for fiscal year 2016-17 and 2017-18, and Resolution 1950A to publicly adopt the pay schedules for fiscal year 1920. The cost for fiscal year 1920 will be approximately $104,000. That concludes my presentation. I'll take any questions at this time.
Any questions?
I would presume this is PERS.
Yes.
In other words, this is all in compliance with PERS. And henceforth, as we go the coming time, this will be an annual.
Correct.
And it has to be approved annually each. So we're not behind the gun and we're not in front of the gun, correct?
Correct. So we can't do 3 years of approval at one time. So we will bring it annually, and that's why we're bringing fiscal year 1920 this year, even though we have the same approval we had in 2015. That we got last year in 2018 again. So we'll be bringing them annually from this point forward.
Okay, so we're all in compliance.
We will be upon approval by the board.
Oh, yeah, in a second. We'll be in compliance. Thank you.
With that, I'd move resolution number 19-10-A to adopt a publicly available pay schedules for FY 2016-17 and 17-18.
Have a motion?
Second.
Okay, motion by Honor, second by Butt. All in favor of the approval of Resolution 19-10-A, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you.
And I move resolution number 15-A that'll adopt the publicly available pay schedule for 2019-20.
Second.
Motion by Arner, second by Butt to approve Resolution 1915A. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Terry
Thank you.
Glad you have us right there on top of things. That's awesome. All right, the next item on the agenda is correspondence and news clippings. Don't see any of those. Commissioner and staff comments. I will report out that I attended the CalCog annual conference where we partnered with the Local Government Commission this year and joined our two conferences together. We're usually conflicting on the same weekend. So rather than do that, we decided to partner together and had a rather lively conference. Did we not, Tom?
It was.
It was very informative. I heard from the Local Government Commission folks that it was a little more conservative than it sometimes is. They're a little more environmentally oriented, and CalCog is a little more the technocrats and the transportation orientation stuff. But we had a good conference and lots of really, really good presentations and discussions. So I will report that out. Thank you to CCTA for sending me as your representative to that. Other comments from commissioners? Newell.
I just want to give a big thanks to Jack and Tim. We had a group of 24 people, variety of backgrounds, mostly students getting master's degrees and fairly advanced degrees from both business, transportation, some engineering. And we had on our Easy Mile autonomous vehicle, they all took rides. And on my ride, because I'd been on it for a while, we actually had the first time in 2 years a little instantaneous stop. It was fascinating to see how it worked, which they were going to go figure out why it did an emergency stop while we were moving.
Interesting.
But it was
a squirrel ran across your path?
No, there was something that, because the woman who was, she said in 2 years this has never happened. So everybody was, oh, what is it? So I don't know what it was, but it was fascinating. So anyway, just to say thank you. It's back up moving again. There were some contract issues. And boy, if from what we hear, is we can get the new sensors. The newer version of that car is so much more advanced. It's kind of like having the old Volkswagen Beetle and the new one. It will be robust to be able to go across the streets. It's going to have trouble. The problem is it only goes 25 miles an hour. The speeds on Camino Ramon are 40 plus.
Right.
And, that is not a good combination.
That's a conflict.
But anyway, thank you. That was exciting.
We need bus on shoulder there, so it's in a protected lane.
I heard it was a cricket.
I will comment, we have upcoming, I believe it's next week, the Leadership San Ramon Valley, I guess it is technically, is doing their tour of Gomentum Station in the morning, and then Commissioner Worth and I will be presenting along with the local planners talks about regional government and planning and that kind of thing. So it'll be exciting to hear what they all have to say about Gomentum. Last time the class did it, they were all really excited. So that's great. Any other commissioner comments? Tom?
At the conference that Julie introduced, I think we all really liked one presentation by West Sacramento where they talked about their van on demand.
Absolutely.
So the PowerPoint on that will be available, and I'll make sure it gets distributed. It probably is now. It wasn't when I first looked. You have it already?
I would actually love to have the mayor of West Sacramento come and give that presentation to this board.
Yeah, that
He
would be
is
good.
so dynamic. He made us really understand how it worked instead of just the technical side of it. He was able to explain the human side of it, much like our drone. He was able to talk about the impact to the community of West Sacramento. And I think we've all watched it kind of spring up as we go back and forth to the Capitol. But what they've done within that community is phenomenal with their transit and how they've economized their bus dollars. They've gotten rid of some conventional bus lines and been able to pay for far more effective transportation for their community. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah,
It was
and
really awesome.
And I will say that while the local government commission may be more progressive, the CalCog folks taught us that all work and no play makes for a dull conference.
That's right. We had a good time. It was an interesting concept going forward for other boards, actually, because they scheduled us to meet all morning, usually until 12:30, 1 o'clock. And then we took a break until 4:30 or 5, in one case 6. And we got to go enjoy the park. And then we came back and worked again until 9 o'clock, which really made for an effective meeting. People were actually at the sessions. They didn't skip out to go play in the park. And it was, really informative for all of us. And we had a visit by John Muir himself, who talked about the park. So it was pretty cool. So executive staff comments. Nothing, huh? All right. Well, congratulations again on the grant. Now let's put it into place and make it work. With that, we are adjourned to our next meeting on Thursday, May 2nd at 8:30 a.m. Thank you all.